Hello, it's Topical Tuesday, May 23rd, 2017. Steve Sipress here, and first, as always, I start off by sharing my rhino of the day. I have an appropriately themed rhino to what I'm talking about today, which is the closing of the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus after a 146-year run. It closed its doors a couple of days ago, and I do have a circus-themed rhino that I cannot find. I've been looking all over the place. I recently moved. If you move recently or ever have, you might be in a similar position and know how I feel. I got stuff in boxes all over the place. I searched through what I thought was everything, what I thought was twice or three times, and I can't find it yet. But when I do, I'll share it here. My rhino of the day, therefore, is this little toy play, little plastic hollow rhino that you probably get for about a penny or maybe a nickel these days, who knows what. So that's about my playful rhino of the day toy, because I want to talk about the circus. And I'm also not wearing my typical silly red Hawaiian shirt of the day. I am wearing a silly red uniform that I wore when I was a vendor in Madison Square Garden over 40 years ago. And so, actually, this is not the original uniform that I wore over 40 years ago. So I got to clarify. Hey, Rob, how are you? Thanks for joining me here today. So I got to clarify, this is not the uniform that I wore 40 years ago. This is the uniform that I wore over 8 years later when I went back to my high school job after graduating college and graduating law school, because I needed money to start a business. And that business was going to become, within 3 years, the largest fantasy sports game company in the industry. And I had customers all over the world, and it was a multi-million-dollar business until I screwed it up. And that story for another day. But I did go back to that high school job in the garden and went to work, and it just took me 3 weeks to get enough money to place the ad and put a down payment on a personal computer, of which that was a rarity back in those days. I started that whole multi-million-dollar business on a Tandy 1000 home computer with a 10 meg external hard drive. That was a whopping amount of savings back then, storage back then. I don't even think that's enough to store like one photo these days. But anyway, that's my, and there's my little, so there you see the prices back then. Man, I mean, ice cream 95 cents. Now, when I first started over 40 years ago, it was 60 cents for an ice cream. And beer was less than $1. I think beer was 90 cents, I'm pretty sure, because we loved it, because we got a dime tip from everybody. By the time I went back 8 years later, we had new uniforms. I can't find the hat either. When I find that someday, I'll share it. And we had a new badge when I had to join the union. The local restaurant and bar workers, I believe, was called Union of New York, which was my first experience at looking at my paycheck and going, what the heck is that money taken out for? Oh, that was a union due. So what are those for? Well, nothing was the explanation. We have nothing to show for it. They claim they do stuff for us, but they're really just taking money out of our pockets and putting in their fat cat pockets, the heads of the union. So that's my first experience with a union, because unions, I don't know, 100 years ago or so, and a few to this day still do a few good things and have a few purposes, but by and large, they don't. But I digress. This is my original union badge. This is what you needed to get in, and you needed to work. That was my original badge from my original days as a vendor in Madison Square Garden. And so what does this have to do with the circus? Well, Madison Square Garden was the home, of course, to the New York Knicks, the New York Rangers, which it still is today. Plenty of concerts coming in. The first Monday of every month was Worldwide Wrestling. I don't know if they still have that, but it conveniently coincided with the monthly welfare checks being mailed out a few days before. And so what a coincidence. I just wonder if the schedulers had that in mind when they scheduled Worldwide Wrestling soon after those welfare checks came out, because then we wanted to be walking around with that beer and taking as much of that welfare money as people wanted to give us to have fun with it, because that's what people like to do, is have fun with their money. So here's the deal. It was also the spring home to the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus. From March to the end of June, if I believe correctly, it was about 3 months that there were, I should have counted, but there were 2 shows every day and 3 on Saturday. So there were 22 shows a week of the circus in Madison Square Garden, and that was where the biggest money was to be made for vendors. Now, back in those days, and I don't know if it still is or it might be different all over the place, we worked on pure commission. 14.25% was the percentage we got of everything we sold. So for this 95-cent ice cream, for instance, we would get the 14 cents or 13 point something, but then we'd get a nickel from everybody for a tip. So we would actually make about 19 cents on every ice cream that we sold. And when beers were 90 cents, we would get that 13 cents plus the 10-cent tip. We'd make 23 cents on a beer. And the other items like popcorn, 60 cents or whatever, we'd get our whatever, 8 cents commission. All added up to, back in the day, I would make about 30 or 35 bucks a night for a Knick game, and maybe a little bit more for a Ranger game. We had 2 intermissions, so that's a big time to be selling stuff. People are walking around wanting food. I was a food vendor. By the way, there was a food vendor and a souvenir vendor. So you see my badges. I was walking up and down the aisles carrying about 50, 60 pounds of stuff, lifting it up and down, yelling at the top of my lungs, carrying dealing with the change in the pockets. You can see the pockets here for the change. So there's the change pockets where we keep the bills and the change. So walking around with pounds worth of pennies and quarters and nickels. So we had to be good at math and quickly count out the change and the money and deal with all that. We had to hustle and be physically fit to be walking up and down the stairs all night long with 30, 40, 50, 60 pounds worth of stuff, depending on how much you can carry, yelling at the top of our lungs all the time. I mean, very physically demanding job as a food vendor. And of course, we were up against the competition, up the aisle and go to the counter and get food. So we brought it right to them, and that's another lesson for another day also. Here were a couple of the old programs that I still have to this day, and they're still pretty much in, I see a little nick on the corner of this one here, up at the top. Otherwise, they are in spectacular condition, these programs, so I don't know what they go for on eBay or whatever, and you see they have the inserts in them. There is the fold-out, full-page, fold-out, centerfold poster to put up on the wall. I don't know if anybody actually did that, of some circus guy. In this case, this is Gunter Gable Williams. Or on here, it's just Gunter Gable, because I think it was a couple years later that he married the woman who did the I don't know, elephants or whatever, and they got married, and he was Gunter Gable Williams, if I remember correctly. But anyway, these are in pristine, beautiful condition, and they're over 40 years old. And I remember as a kid, my dad taking me to the circus. Here's another one. This is, I think this was Tom Thumb, the world's smallest man. And so there's this fold out, which is stapled in, so this one doesn't fold out as easily. But so they even have the inserts still in them, which I know selling magazines, I sold plenty of them in my day. That's an important qualification for judging the quality of the sale. Effie, nice to see you here. So that dates me all the way back to the late 70s, working in Madison Square Garden at the circus. Also went there as a kid, and would go into the rotunda of Madison Square Garden and see the menagerie, and you get up close with the elephants and the lions and the cages and the tigers and the leopards and the horses and whatever was going on there. So loads of fun, and it really is a shame that I just took it for granted that the circus would be around forever and everyone would be able to bring their kids. Now, there was also, I don't know if it still is, but back in those days, there were 2 separate troops of the circus. There was a red and a blue. So that's why the 2 covers of these programs, there's nothing similar from one year to the next. Gunter Gable was there this year, but he was not there this year. This year there was whoever, and the Tigers and the Tom Thumb, and there's the basketball players on the unicycles. That was awesome to watch them practice. And so there was a U.S. tour and a touring, European mostly. And so I don't know if that still is today. Then there were a bunch of vendors that when the school year ended, which coincided pretty much in June with the circus ending Madison Square Garden, they would all get together the circus wagons, the train basically, and all the train cars would go off for the circus with all of the performers and the animals and the implements and the nets and whatever with them. And a bunch of my buddies that were vendors, high school kids back then would, as a summer job, would go travel with the circus. And what an adventure that must have been that I never did myself. I stayed in the garden and worked the concerts and the world team tennis and the wrestling and all that stuff that came in the summer, and also pumped gas and served fast food and did all kinds of things. Anyway, so here's a few things, lessons learned from this. The way we worked as vendors, food vendors in Madison Square Garden, was as if we were running our own business. First of all, it was absolutely pure commission. So we didn't sell anything. We didn't make any money. Furthermore, there was no set schedule that you had to show up and work. There was certainly no, hey, Partiv Shaw, how are you, man? Thank you. There was no set, now again, it operates, and depending on the manager, it could operate differently in any venue there is around the world. But in Madison Square Garden, with my manager back then, we were free to go anywhere we want. There was no assigned areas or territories, or you could go in the upper deck, you could go right down to the stage front, or right down to the basketball court, or whatever. There were some rules during the World Team Tennis. You couldn't go down below a certain point because of the noise and the distractions to the players. And another story for another day on how easily distracted pro tennis players and golfers are. They must have complete silence. Give me a break. Try that on a basketball player. If you're watching these NBA playoffs tonight, try and watch LeBron James on the foul line with a shot that means everything in the last seconds of the game, and try and watch him demand silence from the crowd. Give me a break. Or Tom Brady, or a quarterback, or a baseball player. Watch a baseball player try and go, hey, be quiet, I'm trying to hit here. So anyway, so there was no set territories. There were no set schedule of when you could show up, when you're not. There was no medical benefits. There were no salaries. So 87% of America that is not self-employed has the biggest, whiniest excuse of all time. They like to say, oh, I can't work for pure commission. Like, hopefully none of you are watching. You shouldn't be watching my videos. You shouldn't be, unless you're friends or family, on Facebook, but you shouldn't be at my blog or on my website or watch me on YouTube or any of that. If you're one of those 87%, especially if you're one of the microcosm, minor number of those 87% of I can't work on pure commission, I'm anti-owning my own business, and you're even the you didn't build that socialist crowd. I mean, that's going to extremes. But even the ones that are okay with business owners whine and moan about, oh, gee, I have to get benefits on the job. You can get benefits. Obamacare proves that, and before Obamacare, you can just go right to any Blue Cross or anybody, and you can buy medical benefits. So I've always had benefits. Whenever I wanted them, I bought them, and I've always been self-employed pretty much my entire life. So this nonsense about I need benefits or I need a salary, I need whatever, is a whiny excuse that I learned as a kid. So this is what my teachable moment for today on Topical Tuesday is: how you bring up your kids when they're young might affect them older. Because I see people, so let me put it this way, tell you a story about business owners, because I spoke to someone who was a child of a business owner. And the business owner had this child working in the business from a very young age, sweeping the floors, whatever. Problem was, the pay was a salary. I'll give you $10 if you show up and you do X, Y, Z. I'll give you $10 a week. You have to show up on these days and do this or whatever. Here's what my parents did. My parents, I didn't realize this till later, my parents said, yeah, you can have X amount of money for every whatever you do. You mow the lawn, you do this. You grab your shovel and go next door and ask the neighbors and shovel their snow and get food. Back then it was $10 a piece. Now it's 40, 50, who knows how much. So go get $10 a piece for shoveling the snow. Go get this much for, go get your own paper route. That's pure commission. I would drive around on my bike and I would collect bottles out of the garbage and return them for a nickel a piece. Obviously, that's pure commission. Madison Square Garden, you can show up whenever you want. You can work or not work. So this was brought to an extreme when concerts were coming. These are high school kids, and we're red-blooded high school kids, and once in a while, they just want to come in and kind of enjoy the concert, which means enjoying kind of things you put into your body that go along with attending a concert. For instance, our buddies up at the counters refilling our cups with never-ending amounts of beer for those who wanted to drink beer. Those who wanted to be smoking a little recreational whatever back then were doing that too. And in fact, I was walking around, never did any drugs or anything. When I was a high school kid, I was way too square and boring for that. But I know nowadays that what happened was I was getting this contact time. And you would walk around the seats in the garden at a concert. I was trying to work. And trying is the operative word, right? People know one of my pet peeves is the word try because it means fail. So I was attempting and failing to make money by walking around. It's pitch black. It stinks of smoke and drugs, and so your mind is kind of getting there. The music is so loud, nobody can hear you yelling, hey, I got ice cream. They wouldn't let us walk around with beer at a concert. I got ice cream, I got sodas, I got pretzels, I got popcorn, or whatever. Second of all, they were like, sit down, I want to see the show, and they were sitting in the aisles. So unless you went up to the upper deck, anywhere in decent seats, people were coming down from the upper deck and would sit in the aisles, so you couldn't get through. If somebody, did somehow see you from like 8 seats in, it was hell to get them to pass that money over. Because people were like, why are you giving me money? Like, thank you, man. Dude, that's all. No, dude, pass the money. And they can't hear me. They can't hear them. You can't pass the money down. You won't pass the money back. Oh, dude. Oh, you're giving me something. Oh, dude. No, pass that down, dude. So very difficult to work at a concert. So we would work the income, the intermission, and sometimes what we called the blow-off when people are leaving. If we had some extra stuff that we just couldn't sell. Other vendors would simply come in and skip all that nonsense to try and make $20 for a concert and just watch the concert. First of all, our dressing room was right near the dressing room of all the acts and the teams and the everything, so they would just hang out in the dressing room first of all. I remember Rod Stewart would set up the hockey nets from the Rangers and be playing soccer. He was the owner, I don't know if he still is, of a professional soccer team in England, and he loved playing football. Soccer, whatever. Don't say soccer to him. And him and the staff and all the setup guys and his band and whatever. And once in a while, the vendors, you'd see a vendor wearing a silly uniform. We'd take off back in the day we had an apron. This is an all-in-one. But we would take off the apron and we'd be playing soccer with Rod Stewart and run around backstage. Some vendors would just stay in the front row and just kind of watch the concert and love it. It was kind of cool. And then afterwards go backstage. I remember backstage one night with Keith Moon's birthday, drummer for the Who back then. And I remember everyone standing around singing happy birthday, and Pete Townsend walked up and just grabbed the cake with both hands and said, expletive deleted, like, what's all this crap about? And he just flung the cake at everybody. So kind of awesome times there at the Garden. Great job for a kid. Show up whenever you want. Work as hard as you want or not as hard as you want. That's one way that I displayed my hustle. I was going to say I learned to hustle, but I really used my hustle and my self-motivation to work as hard as I can, make as much money as I could. So Nick game, about $25, $30. Ranger game, $35, maybe $40. But the circus, we could make $40, $50 a show. And on a Saturday, there were 3 shows. There was a 10 a.m., a 1:30 p.m., and then a 7:30 p.m. show at night, something like that. Or maybe it was 3 o'clock and 8 o'clock, whatever it was. We had a decent-sized break in between. That's when we would watch them warm up and practice. And they would practice the trapeze, and these unicycle basketball players would be doing all kinds of crazy things. And some amazing stuff these people could do. So the tumblers, the act you would see actually in the circus, when the show's on, of them doing it 3 high or doing a triple flip, well, they would be practicing the quadruple flip or going 5 high in a practice, and we would see some awesome stuff. So we loved that. Now, I, therefore, went to the circus well over 100 times. Made sure to definitely go in there every Saturday and Sunday for the 5 shows. Get in there once in a while on a weekday. Weekday mornings, Tuesday and Thursdays, were all the field trips would come in. So groups of 40, 50 kids on buses would come in, and that was the greatest. All you had to do was find the group leader and one of the teachers, and she would just say, okay, we need 50 sodas. Get back here with 50 sodas, and here's the $30. And boom, you're coming back with 50 sodas. Very nice. Would take a couple hours or half an hour to do that. Then you'd just say, hey, we're coming out next with the ice cream. Would you like? Oh, yeah, for sure. Bring 50 ice cream. Oh, cotton candies. Bring 50 cotton candies. And, if you found 1 or 2 groups per day and you claimed them, and there was rules, unwritten rules, of course, that you could not steal someone else's group. But if you got a couple of groups, you were making money. So circus, big money maker for the vendors, big entertainment for the kids. But I remember it fondly, and we knew the circus so well that we knew every word that the MC was saying. We knew all the fake missteps on the high wire when the drummer would go, the drum roll as the guy's going across the high wire, ooh, ah, and then he would stretch his leg out and almost fall, and the drum would go like, ba-doom, ba-doom, as he'd be, ba-doom, he'd get his footing back again. I mean, it was the same, every single time was the same thing. So, and once in a while, some craziness happens. I know that, what's their names out in Las Vegas, got bit by a tiger or something, but pretty much this show was just nailed it down to the T. Vendors, we knew what was going on. We knew which food was coming out, and those that did it best, we operated like a machine. But my point is, fond memories, and be careful, be very, I just coach you, I suggest that you be very purposeful is the word, of how you bring up your kids, how you pay them for things. So my dad would pay us and say, my dad was in sales and sold furniture. He was a wholesaler selling furniture from manufacturers to the big department stores, Macy's, Bamberger's, Gimbel's in New York, and so forth. And every Sunday he got the newspapers, again, dating myself, back in the day, there's no internet. He would get the newspapers from all over the country and want to find all the furniture ads so he could see what styles are selling where, what the prices are, what's going on. He did some research, and he would have my sister and I on the Sundays, or the papers didn't come in until a couple of days later from out of town, but we would get all the papers of the week and sit down and be cutting out all the furniture ads. And he would pay us X amount, I think it was a nickel or a dime or whatever, for every ad you cut out. So we're tearing through the paper and we're cutting out ads and we're having our competitions, and he made it fun, made it competitive, and he instilled into us that first you deliver the value and then you get paid. And that's how entrepreneurs wake up every single day. That's what sets us apart. The 13% of business owners, entrepreneurs, self-employed, whatever you want to call it, people in America, we set ourselves apart from the 87% of the cows that every single day wake up and say, when do I get my paycheck? And, I hate my boss, and I hate my job, and I'll just go in the office and look busy, or I'll shop on eBay during the day, or I'll try and cheat my way through this day somehow and put in as little as possible but you better pay me. I better get my money. I better get my medical health benefits and 401k matching and whatever I get. It's take. So I think this goes to how you bring up your kids, because business owners, I know kids of business owners who brought them up but still paid them on a salary basis, and they grew up to say, yeah, my parents are business owners, but I can't work on pure commission. What a shame. Why not? Would you have so little confidence? Would you have such a bad system going on? Because the sky's the limit. Like I said, you could work when I was a kid, I saw it firsthand. We would go into a concert and just go in and be free and see the concert for free, and go into school the next day and wear your concert t-shirt and tell everyone I went to the concert while kids were paying $10, $12 a ticket. We were getting to sit in the upper deck. We were sitting in the front row for free. Greatest job in the world. Or you could say, here's an opportunity. Let's see what's on the schedule. Oh, look, Tuesday night, 7:30 Knicks game. I better get over there. I better be in great shape. I better not be tired. I better be ready to go. And for 2.5 hours, I'm ready to run my butt off and yell at the top of my lungs and lift heavy stuff and count the money right, do everything right all night to make my $30 in a couple of hours work. Minimum wage back then was about $3.15 an hour for other jobs I worked. So I could pump gas and people could pump gas and make their $3.15. I could go in and work basically 2 hours and make $30 and watch the end of every Knicks game and Ranger game when we're all sold and checked out by the end and the concerts and whatever, and just be watching it and having a blast. So greatest job in the world. Fitting that it was the spring home for the Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus, the greatest show on earth. So for the last time, I will say goodbye with my over 40-year-old programs to the Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus, which, by the way, notice one of the names in there. Barnum. Another subject for another day, possibly a success story Saturday. The life and times and success of one of the greatest entrepreneurs of all time, Mr. Phineas T. Barnum. We will talk about that someday. But for now, let's go to the questions or anything in here. Jer Dog is here. Donnie Bryant, great seeing you. Jer Dog says, big P.T. Barnum fan here. Excellent. Love it. So am I. I recommend everyone read his book, The Art of Money Getting. Love it. Also, there's a book by Joe Vitale, I believe, about the life of P.T. Barnum, I think, anyway. So, yes, you gotta study P.T. Barnum if you're an entrepreneur and you enjoy making money and you enjoy selling stuff, because too many people, I hear it all the time, they have trouble selling stuff. If you are having any trouble at all selling stuff, I got to tell you, selling stuff is easy. Contact me. I'll help you sell lots of stuff. Building a business, different story. And building a business that's built to last, entirely different story. 146 years for the Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus, brought down for the most part by multiple lawsuits and constant legal wrangling and bad PR against them. And it's the life and times we live in. Their show was not politically correct, and therefore we just can't have that in today's society. Another topic for another day. So farewell to the circus. Fond memories, being a food vendor in Madison Square Garden back in the day. Worked well over 100 times at the circus. Saw it a few times as a kid with my parents, and it's a shame that vendors won't get to work it, the workers won't get to perform at it, and most of all that the kids just won't get to experience it. But life goes on. It's the same in your business, by the way, and the same in my business and every business. If you think that it's definitely going to be here 5 years from now, 10 years from now, heck, 1 year from now, and be the same that it is now, whoa, someone is feeding you a line of something, or you're just blind to the truth and the reality. You've got to constantly be innovating, changing, working, looking for new opportunities, because I'm telling you, no matter what you think something is built to last, there's going to come a time where every single business is going to be gone. So, fond farewell to the Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus for today. Topical Tuesday, May 23rd, 2017. Merle, great to see you again. Thanks for joining me. Effie, Partiv, Donnie, Sherdog, and Merle, and anybody else watching on the replay. I'll be back tomorrow with Wisdom Wednesday, and I'll give you a hint. I have already given a hint about what I'm going to cover in tomorrow's daily video. Hopefully, I will see you here then. Thanks for joining me.